Greetings all, this is Bob Gumbs bringing you the Concerned Forum. Um, let's see, quick housekeeping. If you'd be so kind as to, give me a check mark as in terms of if you like what I had to say. Um, Let me know that you're out there. And let me take, because I only have a short amount of time here tonight. Just let me dive right into it. As you know, or you should know, right now we are in the midst of the Trump Epstein Iranian war. Okay? I'm just doing this off the cuff because number one, I think that people need to start doing more speaking off the cuff because we need to start being honest with each other, not just in America, but around the world, quite frankly. Um, I am so ashamed of what my country is doing. We're going around the world killing people. Now, understand something. This whole Iraqi war nonsense, this was something that Donald Trump decided to do, okay? Iran never declared war upon the United States. At the behest of the Israeli government and the Israeli prime minister, we decided to attack Iran. Now, I think that one of the worst things about this whole mess is the fact that, well, you hear Donald Trump talking about, well, Iran must never be allowed to have nuclear weapons. Okay. Um, Now I'm curious, why? Now let me start from the jump. I don't believe in nuclear weapons for anyone. I think that the whole Middle East should be a nuclear free zone. But I don't understand why, you're going to talk about, oh, Iran must never have nuclear weapons because they're crazy people and blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm looking at Israel and the way that they snatch land from the Palestinian people there. Gaza, the West Bank, southern Lebanon. And I'm trying to understand why is it that they are not crazy people. Another thing that I find intriguing, and that is that they say, when I say they, I'm talking about, the mainstream media and Trump and, his coterie of bend over assholes, basically, when they talk about, oh, well, Iran is the biggest contributor to terrorism and violence in the Middle East? No, well, that's not true. Now, I never claimed to be an expert in the affairs of the so-called Middle East, but I'm not a novice. I spent several years when I was in the Navy. I spent several years assigned to the Defense Intelligence Agency with what they call, well, I don't know what they call it now, but back then it was a cosmic top secret SBI clearance. So I think I know a little bit about the subject, okay? In terms of the Middle East, nobody's hands are clean, okay? All these organizations that the pro-Israeli government, um, Americans in Congress and in the bureaucracy, when they talk about, well, Israel's the bad, Iran is the bad actor. Well, that's not true. I haven't seen Even when I was at DIA, I did not hear of any Iranians trying to steal territory from people. Israel, since 1967, how many times have they broken United Nations resolutions, so on and so forth? I mean, I can't even count them. Okay. So this idea that you're going to make one nation responsible for all the blood and hate in the Middle East, you want to make one nation responsible for all that. To me, that sounds rather stupid, quite frankly. I'm sorry if I don't put it in the high academic prose. Okay, I mean, look, I'm a kid out of New York. Like, I'm lucky I got a bachelor's. Still about a year away from getting a master's degree. So I'm not trying to attempt to sound like an erudite scholar. But basic right and wrong are basic right and wrong. And this is the situation that we have now, this whole Iranian war thing. You have a president, Donald Trump. Oh my God, how many millions has he gotten from APAC and from it was Adelson's out there in Nevada with their gambling, empire. So to me, you would really have a very difficult time in taking Donald's word for anything. Okay, not to forget the fact that he's a five-time draft dodger, and I find it interesting to see that his son is following in his dad's footsteps. I mean, when's the last time you seen Barron down at any damn recruiting office? See, this is the mentality of the Epstein class. You working class white Americans from the so-called heartland, your kids are good enough to be sent to the Middle East to be sacrificed. But if you notice the children of the elite, they're in college or they're on Wall Street making money, you know. And I just wonder what is taking the American public so long to wake up to this nonsense. But dealing with getting back on Iran, I don't think there's any such thing as a perfect government. Okay. Um, I mean, if I had my way, we'd all be riding unicorns every afternoon and having big tubs of vanilla ice cream or chocolate syrup in the evening. Okay? But that's not the way the world works. We have not reached Star Trek and the United Federation of Planets yet. That's still quite some way off in the future. In the meantime, we try to do the best that we can. Okay? Um, I get so tired of hearing this nonsense about, oh, wow, Iran has killed 100,000 of their own people demonstrating. Listen, I'm not going for that bullshit. Seriously. I'm not. Because as a black American, I'm not going to criticize. Okay? I can show you actual pictures. I can bring actual people that remember having state police in Alabama and Mississippi sick police dogs on them. The picture of a police dog biting, I think the guy was like 15 years old, and taking a piece out of this kid's stomach because of the fact that he wanted to use the public library. So I don't think that the United States is in any moral We don't stand on any moral plateau to talk about what we believe or what we want to believe Iran is doing to its own citizens. Abhor anytime any government um, abuses its own citizens. Okay, but for the United States to try and point the finger at Iran, no, I'm not going to buy into that. Because, see, one of the things about getting older is that you remember a lot of things and you experienced a lot of things. I came of age in American politics in the late 50s, early 60s, okay? My old man and my mom were rock, rib black Republicans, okay? My dad was a union organizer. Now you think about that for a moment. That is from a time when the Republican Party in this country actually respected union people and union organizers. Okay? So I don't need anyone to tell me about the Republican Party versus Democratic Party. I lived through it. I saw it. I attended the demonstrations with my parents. I was there. I saw priests and ministers and rabbis and Buddhist monks beaten to the ground in the cause of civil rights for black and brown people and Asian people. So I really don't want to hear the nonsense, quite frankly. And for this insane man that we have in the White House to feel that somehow it's his duty to make sure that Iran doesn't develop a nuclear weapon. I'm curious, why is it okay for Israel? I think Israel, last I heard, had something like about 400 400 nukes. Um, I'm not going to get into any more than that because that would involve some of the things I saw when I was assigned to DIA. But yeah, the world's worst kept secret. Israel is a nuclear power. Okay? Woo, woo. Now, as I said, I don't believe in nuclear weapons for us on this planet to use against each other. Saying that, I honestly feel, as I said before, that the Middle East needs to be a nuclear because it's so important to the world's great religions and people and blah, blah, blah. I think that it should be declared a nuclear free zone. If someone would ask me, well, what would make you happy? I would say the Middle East becoming a nuclear free zone, period. Unfortunately, it seems that Israel and their prime minister have imperial expansionist daydreams. Okay? Now, you can daydream whatever you want. Okay? Um, when I was in my early 20s, I used to daydream about being with Lola Falana. Okay? But that was my dream, right? That was my trip. When it comes to the point where you're trying to take your daydream and impress it upon everybody else in your neighborhood, yeah, that's when you have a problem, frankly. And I think that in this whole relationship between the United States and Israel, I think that there's been too much of that. Too much of that has been accepted. Too much of that nonsense, that craziness has been accepted. Along with this business about, oh, well, hey, these guys are terrorists. right? Saying, oh, well, Iran, they're full of terrorists. Number one, Iran is actually Persia, okay? And we're talking about a civilization that's over 5,000 years old. So to just chalk them up as terrorists, uh, there's nothing wrong with being a simple person, but I think it's wrong you are a simple-minded person. So when you use the term terrorist to try and paint a broad brush, I think that that makes you pretty simple-minded, okay? By that reckoning, um, every freedom fighter, George Washington would be considered a terrorist. Um, the what about the first several Israeli prime ministers? Didn't Begin have a wanted dead or alive poster put up by the British because he had murdered a whole bunch of United Nations and British soldiers in the King David Hotel? Just blew him up. Yeah, Begin. Right? Uh, Israel says he's a hero. He was their prime minister. And he said, they say that he was an Israeli hero. Okay. Brother, what's his name? Kenyatta in Kenya, the Mau Mau that fought to get the British out of the people's land. I guess he was as far as I'm concerned, he was a hero. But some people want to call him a terrorist. Mandela was labeled as a terrorist. That's why I really don't like people using that term. Because see, your terrorist is my freedom fighter. And you might feel that my freedom fighter is your terrorist. Ever hear of the IRA? God bless them. Hmm? Ever hear of the first president of Ireland, Eamon de Valera? He was, he was called a terrorist by the Brits. It all depends on whose foot the shoe is on. Now, my personal opinion, I would rather stick by, the Geneva Convention, what is or isn't a war crime. And I'd rather deal with that than this nonsense about who is and who isn't a terrorist. Unfortunately, and I know a lot of people will get angry when I say this, but the people in Gaza, the Palestinians, they are on the right side of history. America, the Allies, we went through all that trouble. What was it, 6 years of war, 1939 and 1945. And we promised that we were going to establish a more just world. And we came up with this thing called the United Nations, which was originally meant to take the place of the old League of Nations that fell apart in the 1930s. So, if you're gonna, if you're gonna do that, then let's do it fair. Let's do it right. And the United Nations have said again and again that what Israel, what the government of Israel is doing, they are an army of occupation. And, I'm sorry, folks, but when you are being an army of occupation and taking over, somebody trying to take over somebody else's turf, you gotta leave yourself wide open to that. And all these organizations, Hamas, oh, that person is with Hamas. And what's the one? Hezbollah, right? Hezbollah, right? Listen, how do you think those organizations got started? Why do you think they got started? And see, what really angers me about the United States, my country, is the fact that Demagogues, politicians, they take advantage of the lack of knowledge of the American people. Now they say, oh, well, what do the Iranians do? They scream, death to America, death to America. Excuse me, death to America. And, other such sayings, right? Well, let me tell you, let me ask you something. Okay, I don't know, you got a nice crib in the suburbs. Me and my boys decided to come over to your crib, smack the crap out of you, kick you out your house, kick your wife out of the house, kick your kids out of the house, and say, hey, guess what? This is our house now. And we're going to set up the administration, the type of government that we feel like setting up. Now, it's been said that sometimes I'm not the greatest judge of human nature, right? But I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that if I came to your crib, to your neighborhood, smacked you around and said, hey, this is how we're going to run things, somehow I get the feeling that, you're not going to kiss my hand and thank me. That you will be prone to say nasty things about me, like, you're the devil, death to you, and other such quaint sayings, right? And this is something as a Black American, I've always, um, as somebody, my father was from the American Virgin Islands, and my mom was from Virginia. Got here sometime in the 60s and 80s, our family did. And I've never figured out, it must be like a slavery thing in southern states that they have managed to pass on to the rest of the United States. But why do we have this idea that somebody smacks the crap out of you, that for some reason, they're going to like you? That's something I've never figured out. That and why Trump was able to get so many white Americans to like him or support him. But getting back on the first, yeah, you smack me in the mouth, and if I can't do anything about it, hey, I'm not going to let it pass. But I'm going to remember it. See? And what we did to the Iranian people, oh my God, they had a democratically elected, what was he, president, prime minister, what's the guy's name? Mossadegh. And because he had the nerve, this is back in 53, Mossadegh had the nerve and the audacity to say that, hey, guess what? There's a lot of oil here in Iran. And you know what? It belongs to us, the Iranian people. We're not going to allow you guys to keep coming in here, cut rating us, right? Taking our oil and maybe spreading a few peanuts to the elites. See, that's the kind of bullshit that the West has been doing in Africa for the longest, right? You got something, a place that's rich in natural resources. So what you do, you what do you call it? Extricate the resources, okay? And you put out some nice crumbs for the elites, some of the so-called leaders, right? They can buy nice cars and send their kids to Oxford. And the society as a whole, continues to go down the toilet. And what most of the day said was, no, 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 you're not going to do that, man. Yo, this is our oil, okay? We're going to charge you what we think the market will bear, what we think is a correct price. So the Brits in the United States, in particular the CIA, get together and they say, yo, we can't have this. We can't have this goop telling us how much we have to pay him for his oil. All right? So they said, well, yeah, let's say he's a communist. Let's call him a communist. Right? So now they have a reason to create havoc in Iran, and that's what they did. And sure enough, boom, they got Mossadegh out of there. They bring in the Shah, the monarchy, right? Now, these were the same birds that America and Britain had thrown out in 1940. And see, America didn't get into the war until late 41. But we were already doing stuff, pulling strings behind the curtains in 39, 40, right? And hey, well, this guy, what is it, the Pahlavis? Is that their name of their monarchy? He said, hey, these guys are like kind of like Nazis, man. We're getting into a serious war here. We can't have these clowns at our back. So they got rid of the monarchy. They chased them out. And, they started telling Iranians about all this good shit about, freedom, equality, justice, blah, 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 blah. Right? So the Iranians are really deep into this democracy shit. And they, like I said, they picked a dude named Mossadegh, right? Apparently he was a cool guy because he seems to be very well loved. And he became, I always get it mixed up, president or prime minister, either one. He became the head honcho. And then the whole question about the oil comes up. And, Mossadegh is like, yeah, man, look, no problem. We got plenty of oil here. And we're going to charge you so-and-so. And the Brits, they're like, you going to charge us what? And so they lean over to the American CIA and they say, hey, man, this dude's talking about we're going to have to pay him. Right? And so the CIA, American CIA, said, hey, we got you covered. And so they started this whole bullshit about, Mossadegh is in the pockets of the Kremlin. He's in the pockets of the Kremlin. He was a communist, blah, right? So make a long story short, they got rid of the guy, okay? They brought back the monarchy, the same monarchy that they had thrown out in 1940. They bring back in 1953, Pahlavis, I always get that stuff, Pahlavis, what have you. And this guy goes on to rule for 20 some odd years. I guess his Nazi friends had taught him well because he had the kind of like the Gestapo, SS, all that good shit, right? And finally, people got sick of it. So in 1979, the year I went in the Navy, the students, they staged a revolt. And that's what happened. Now, if you're asking me how I feel about theocracies, well, look, I'll be honest about it. I'm Roman Catholic. God, it's been like over almost a decade since I went to Mass. Okay. After my time in the Gulf War and, just kind of getting older, I have questions about organized religion. Okay, that's my business. All right. I will say that I do believe in the Creator. I do believe that we answer for the evil that we do in life. And that's all. because I'm talking about a political issue here. And in most cases, politics and religion, they don't make good bedfellows. Now, I have some serious problems. Obviously, as you can see, I'm a black man, and I have some serious problems with the founding fathers. But some things they did get right. And one of the things they did get right was that you need to have a separation between church and state. Now, I'm not talking about a separation of ethics and morality. I'm just talking about a separation of church and state. Because that's one of the things that's killing the United States now. You got all these wacko evangelicals out there. And I'm not talking about people like, God rest his soul, Jimmy Carter. But I'm talking about people that try to use religion for their own political purposes. We got too much of that. But to try and stay on track, no, I don't believe in theocracy. However, I don't believe that if another country, if country A is practicing, if they have a theocracy, hey, that's on them, okay? Their people can work that out. See, this is another thing that really pisses me off about this Trump regime. I'm tired of hearing this crap about, oh, well, the Iranians are brutal to their own people. As I said earlier, I'm a black man. I'm a black American man. Don't tell me about governments that are brutal to their own people. Okay? I mean, we can talk about that, not on this particular video, but we can talk about that, right? I mean, look, you go to the Library of Congress, they have whole floors dedicated to the subject of how the United States treats its own people, indigenous people, African people, immigrants. So this is why I said the United States, you need to stop trying to claim some kind of damn moral pedestal because you ain't got it. Okay? You get America, we have good marks for attempting to make a more free, decent quality of life society. And that was the whole name of the game, that we on this path to try to get better, to make it better. And then you have Donald Trump coming along, basically saying, oh, to try and be decent, to try and be humane, to actually try and live up to the principles of the United States of America is bullshit. That's him. And so that's why now it seems like we're about 150 years from where we started 150 years ago. Okay? But suffice it to say, the United States is in no position to lecture anybody about morality. Okay? If we were serious about morality, if the United States was serious about trying to live up to some kind of moral code, we would be signatories and members of the international, what is that? The International Criminal Court, okay? Which we ain't. So please, don't lecture me with bullshit. But again, talking about this nonsense, because that's what this war in Iran is. It is nonsense. Apparently the Israeli government feels insecure and they decided that they wanted the United States to basically turn Iran to a decimated, whacked out, divided, broken up state, okay? So that they could carry on their project of Greater Israel. And I say, quite frankly, if Israel wants to do that, that's fine. But don't drag my country, the United States, into it. Okay? As an American, I take a very dim view of people that want to commit genocide, especially genocide on babies. I'm sorry. I truly am. And I'm very angry about this business about, well, if you don't support the state of Israel 100%, you're anti-Semitic. Listen, part of the reason why I left active duty with the Navy, and I will always love the Navy, and to this very day, a couple of decades later, I still miss it. If I had to do it all over again, I think I would probably done it a little bit differently. But I understand anti-Semitism. I saw it on my last tour in the Navy before I went to the Gulf War. It is ugly. It is the mindless machinations of ignoramuses. That's what anti-Semitism is. But see, when I criticize the Israeli Prime Minister, when I criticize the actions of the Israeli government, I am criticizing the state of Israel, a sovereign state, an independent state. Okay? The same way that I criticize the government of the United States when I feel it's necessary, the same way I would criticize France or Britain or any other independent sovereign state. And it has nothing to do with this anti-Semitism. Now, do you have anti-Semites that want to take advantage of what's going on? Yeah, unfortunately, I am sure you do. But by the same token, you don't have the right to use a broad brush to paint everyone that is against what is going on in Gaza, what is against going on in South Lebanon. You don't have the right to paint us as anti-Semites, okay? It makes me angry to hear that, especially me, because I probably gave what could have been a pretty damn good career, okay? And, hey, look, my evaluations in the Navy speak for themselves. So I don't really have to prove anything to anyone. But it makes me angry. I remember seeing rabbis being spit upon and kicked and beaten who stood up here in America for the cause of black voting rights and black civil rights. So I don't need any damn buddy to lecture me about anti-Semitism. But what America is doing with this Trump regime is wrong. It is wrong to try and frighten Canada, our closest ally. It is wrong to disrespect Mexico, our other close ally. It is wrong to say that you want to take over Greenland if military force if necessary. It is wrong to take advantage and try and say, well, we're going to take over Cuba. It is wrong to kidnap the head of a sovereign nation called Venezuela and take their oil and say that you have for some reason God gave you the right to do that. It is wrong. I don't know, have we reached 150 yet? How many fishermen, sailors, what have we killed off the coast of Venezuela in the Caribbean, right? And we have yet to see any evidence of any, drug transport or whatever. You let the former president of Honduras, who was already in American jail, who's already been convicted of pumping over 400 tons of cocaine into the United States. This guy said that I want to put coke up the nose of every gringo. And you, Donald Trump, excuse me, you gave this guy a pardon. So how much does the so-called war on drugs really mean to you? Like, when I look at what's happening to America, I feel like I'm in the twilight zone. Truly. When I see Trump bombing in Africa, Nigeria, really, the president of a white supremacist uh, government, of a white supremacist cabinet that takes down the pictures off the wall of black and brown heroes of the Revolutionary War, of the Civil War, of the indigenous wars against the native people, Spanish American War, World War I, World War II, and so on. And they take it down, right? Who attacks people for trying to just teach Black American history or Latino history in the Southwest. And on top of that, you're gonna go and bomb Nigeria? You're gonna go bomb someplace in Africa? Talking about, oh, well, they're attacking Christians. Listen, man, you don't give a damn about Christians. You don't give a damn about Christians here, in the United States. Look at how you treat Christian immigrants, right? So please, man, stop the bullshit. And now you think that you have a right to continue to bomb Nigeria and to bomb people in Cuba. Oh, but yeah, you can do that. I forget. You're Jesus, right? I mean, that's what you told us with these crazy memes of yourself that you make, that you're God. Now, I'm not going to get in a historical debate about what the real nature, what Jesus actually looked like. I'm not going to get into that here. But we all know, what we can all agree on, black, white, brown, yellow, doesn't make a difference. We can all agree on the fact that you believe that you were Jesus Christ. Because you're the one that put out the meme. And then before that, what did you do? The two most probably well-known Americans, not just black Americans, but Americans, that can go just about anywhere on this planet and receive a standing ovation. And of course, I refer to Michelle and Barack Obama. And what did you do? You created a meme that took the bodies of gorillas and put their heads on the bodies of gorillas to play right into the old American trope about black folks being apes. And quite frankly, with your hatred for DEI and what have you, uh, uh, why would you? I'm trying to understand why do you think that you belong anywhere south of the equator? Okay, because guess what? The global south, basically, they are dark people. They're African, they're Asian, okay, and Latin American. And so what the hell are you doing trying to hang out in these places. Seriously, you forget, and I hate the fact that you lead the American people astray. The United States is less than 4% of the global population. And I asked the question, is it wise to have someone like you in the chair of the chief executive? Not to mention the fact that you're a very sick man. So I would ask my fellow Americans, this is who you want? This is the person whose finger that you want to see on that red button. And then I want you to think about that. Then I want you to take a look at your kids. Your kids, your nieces and nephews, your elderly parents. And then let me ask you that question again. Is this the person that you want to see with his thumb on the red button? You think about that. Seriously, you think about that. See, one thing I want to say to basically conclude this video is that one of the great disasters of America has been, I hate to use the term race because there's no such thing as race. Okay, I think any scientist would tell you that. But for the sake of, basically trying to keep it simple, I'll use that term. We have a problem with race. And what people like Trump and demagogues like him have done, they have basically used race, biased, fundamentalist religion to essentially get people to go their way. See, to make them believe that, oh, well, yeah, it's all the fault of these dark people. That's why my life is so screwed up. And that just ain't true. See? And that is what is killing the United States. That is what is killing the American brand, our position in the world. You cannot go forward with hate. Okay? It's a new century. This is not 1910. And as long as people like Donald Trump and some of these big corporate people, who basically is they're trying to make as much money as they can, and by the way, those corporate types, they know better. Okay? They know better. But they want to have someone like Trump in the lead position so that they don't have to worry about being forced to pay their fair share of taxes. And that's the problem that we have with the United States. In other words, we are being made suckers of because we are now so busy that we are fighting ourselves, that the folks that we should be fighting are laughing all the way to the bank. And somebody out there is saying, oh, well, this guy, Rom, he's just, he's trying to stir up class warfare. No, that's a lie. It's not true. Class warfare? The war already started. The class war already started. And working class America, you lost. Okay? And this is what we have to contend with. It's just that simple. Listen, it's getting late, and I got some more of these things to prepare for, because I got a lot to say. Listen, thank you for allowing me to take up your time, and I will catch you on the flip side. Peace, and thank you.